Marlo Thomas was born November 21, 1937 in Detroit, Michigan, the daughter of comedian Danny Thomas, which in Hollywood should have been her biggest advantage, but she refused to use it. She wanted to earn it herself. And she did. Starting in 1966, she became Anne-Marie on ABC's That Girl, a young woman who left her small town, moved to New York City alone, chased an acting dream, and paid her own bills doing it. Nobody on American television had ever shown a single woman living that life before. Not like that. The show ran for 136 episodes across 5 seasons, and during that run she was nominated for 4 Emmy Awards and won the Golden Globe for Best Female TV Star in 1967. What most people never knew is that she wasn't just the star, she was also the executive producer, one of the first 4 women in television history to produce her own series. After That Girl ended, she created Free to Be, You and Me, a children's project about equality and confidence that won her first Emmy. She went on to win 3 more Emmys after that, plus a Grammy, a Peabody, and in 2014, President Barack Obama placed the Presidential Medal of Freedom around her neck, the highest civilian honor in America. Today at 88, she is still active, still speaking, still fighting for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the institution her father founded. She never really stopped being that girl. October 6, 1996. That was the day the world lost Ted Bessell suddenly without warning, at just 61 years old. He was pronounced dead at UCLA Medical Center's emergency room. The cause was an aortic aneurysm. Just days before, he had called his old co-star Marlo Thomas, told her he'd been having chest pains. She told him to see a doctor. He never made it in time. Born March 20, 1935, in Flushing, Queens, Bessell grew up to become Donald Hollinger on That Girl, Anne-Marie's patient, devoted, slightly exhausted boyfriend for all 5 seasons from 1966 to 1971. The role made him famous, but it also boxed him in. He once said those exact words, "Donald Hollinger made me a name, but took away the heart of me." Offers dried up because everyone only saw him as the good boyfriend. So he shifted, moved into directing, worked behind the camera on The Tracy Ullman Show, and shared an Emmy as a producer on that series. At the time of his death, he was weeks away from directing a film version of Bewitched with his close friend and partner Penny Marshall. He came from vaudeville. His father performed in it, and Lou Parker grew up learning the rhythms of a crowd before he ever stepped in front of a camera. Born Austin Louis Jacobs on October 29, 1907, in Brooklyn, New York, he spent decades on Broadway stages and variety shows before television found him, and when it did, it gave him Lou Marie, the overprotective, grumbling, deeply loving father of Anne-Marie on That Girl. He appeared in 63 episodes from 1966 to 1971, and every scene he shared with Marlo Thomas crackled with real warmth. She adored him like a second father, and when he got sick, she visited him in the hospital every single day, often bringing ice cream. He had taken ill with cancer not long after the show ended, and by October 1972, he was at Clare's Hospital in New York City fighting. He passed away on October 27, 1972, just 2 days before what would have been his 65th birthday. Marlo Thomas, at the request of his wife Betty Keane, delivered the eulogy at his funeral. There's a certain kind of actress Hollywood always needed, but rarely celebrated, the warm, dependable, always believable mother. Rosemary DeCamp was that actress for nearly 50 years. Born November 14, 1910 in Prescott, Arizona, she built her career across radio, film, and television, becoming a familiar face in countless American homes. In the 1940s, she stood beside James Cagney in Yankee Doodle Dandy. In the early 1950s, she played Peg Riley opposite Jackie Gleason in The Life of Riley on television. And from 1966 to 1971, she played Helen Marie, the calm, patient mother balancing between her anxious husband Lou and her free-spirited daughter Anne on That Girl. After That Girl, she stepped back from the spotlight gradually, her last credit coming in 1989. She had been married to Judge John Ashton Schindler for 57 years, until his death in 1998, and the two raised 4 daughters together. On February 20, 2001, Rosemary DeCamp passed away at her home in Newport Beach, California. She was 90 years old. The cause was pneumonia. He played a neighbor in one episode of That Girl in 1966. No mustache, no swagger, a completely ordinary guy. And almost nobody watching at the time would have guessed this was the same person who would one day become one of the most beloved comedic villains in American film history. Born January 3, 1932, in Austin, Texas, Dabney Coleman studied law and served in the Army before a chance encounter with actor Zachary Scott convinced him to drop everything and move to New York to study acting. He did, literally the next day. He spent the 1960s grinding through guest roles on nearly every TV show airing, including his small recurring bit on That Girl. It wasn't until 1976, when he landed the role of the corrupt, morally flexible Merle Jeter on Norman Lear's Mary Hartman, that people started to really see what he could do. That opened the door to everything. The unforgettable lecherous boss in 9 to 5 opposite Jane Fonda and Dolly Parton, the sneering director in Tootsie, the military antagonist in War Games, film after film where he made being awful look like an art form. His final screen credit was Yellowstone in 2019. In his last years, he was dealing quietly with serious health issues, congestive heart failure, and difficulty swallowing. On May 16, 2024, at 1:50 in the afternoon, his daughter Quincy was with him at his Santa Monica home when he took his last breath. She said he went peacefully and exquisitely. He was 92. Bernie Kopel, born June 21, 1933, in Brooklyn, New York, is 91 years old, and he has spent more than 6 decades making sure audiences never forgot his face. On That Girl, he played Jerry Bauman, Donald Hollinger's best friend and workmate, a recurring presence across the show's run from 1966 to 1971. It was a supporting role in a hit series, and it opened doors, because Bernie Kopel was the kind of actor who always found a way to stand out in a room full of people. Before That Girl, he'd already become Siegfried, the scenery-chewing chaos agent on Get Smart. After it, he became Dr. Adam Bricker on The Love Boat, a role he held for the entire 10-year run of that series. From 1977 to 1986, appearing in over 200 episodes and becoming one of the most recognized faces on American television. Today, Bernie is living quietly in Los Angeles, and by recent accounts, he still shuffles through his neighborhood, still sharp-eyed and remembered fondly by everyone who passes. He was last seen on screen in 2022 with small appearances in Grey's Anatomy and The Lincoln Lawyer. At 91, the man who played the ship's doctor for a decade is now simply enjoying the shore. Ruth Bootsy died in her sleep. That's how it ended quietly at home in Stephenville, Texas, on the morning of May 1, 2025, with her husband Kent Perkins nearby. She was 88. She had been fighting Alzheimer's for years, and by 2022, a series of strokes had left her bedridden. The night before she died, Kent posted a message to her fans on her behalf, thanking them for everything, and telling them she wanted them to know she'd probably had more fun doing those shows than they had watching them. That sounds exactly right. Born July 24, 1936, in Westerly, Rhode Island, Ruth Bootsy had been performing since she was a teenager, comedy revues, variety shows, commercials, Broadway, all of it. She appeared on That Girl as a guest, one of her many dozens of TV stops in those years, a familiar face turning up wherever comedy was needed. But her real moment came in 1967 when she was cast as Gladys Ormsby on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, a frumpy, sharp-tongued woman in a brown coat who swung her handbag like a weapon and somehow became a feminist icon in the process. She was the only cast member to appear in every single episode across all 6 seasons. She earned 2 Emmy nominations for it and won the Golden Globe in 1973. Over her career, she collected 5 Emmy nominations in total. She was 88 when she died, a woman who spent her whole life making people laugh and went out the same way she lived, surrounded by the people who loved her and on her own terms.